series that explores Japanese culture, Shinto, and Buddhism through the lens of media, specifically Legend of the Five Rings, the RPG and the LCG by Fantasy Flight Games and Edge. My name is Nicholas Kempin. I am an East Asian Studies major. I've lived here in Japan for several years, and I'm an active practitioner of Shinto. I will be your host for this program, and I look forward to being able to explore Japanese culture, Shinto, Buddhism, and Legend of the Five Rings with all of you. Behind me, you'll see the entrance to Meiji Jingu. This shrine is nearly 100 years old. It'll be reaching that in a few short months as of the recording of this video. The shrine itself is dedicated to Emperor Meiji and his wife, Empress Shoken. The entire forest that surrounds the shrine was donated by various organizations, people, other shrines to create this natural, man-made forest in the middle of Tokyo. Now, you're probably asking, why am I here discussing a card game? Well, to really understand that, we need to understand the lore of Legend of the Five Rings and what it's trying to tell us. And to do that, we have to go to the beginning.
Before we get into the creation myth, as shown in the Legend of the Five Rings, let's discuss a bit about the two Shinto creation myths. There were two kami, Izanagi no Mikoto and Izanami no Mikoto. These two kami created the world and a vast number of kami together. In one of the myths, while giving birth to the kami of fire, Izanami no Mikoto succumbs to her wounds and dies. Her death affects Izanagi no Mikoto deeply, and he travels into the underworld of Yomi to try and bring her back to the world of the living. He finds her, but she stays hidden from his light, and she demands that he not look at her until they reach the outside world. First, though, she asks to rest. While resting, he shines his light over her and sees her flesh in various states of decay. Upon realizing this, Izanami no Mikoto rages at him for breaking his promise and sends angry spirits after him. Izanagi no Mikoto manages to escape Yomi and closes a portal to it with a large boulder behind him. He travels to a nearby river where he performs the first misogi, ritual purification, and from it are born Amaterasu Omikami, Tsukiyomi no Mikoto, and Susono no Mikoto. In the other creation myth, Izanami no Mikoto doesn't die and gives birth to those same three kami instead. Amaterasu no Mikoto is not involved in the creation of the world, but she is involved in other important myths, which we'll discuss in future episodes. So even within Shinto mythology, there is variation, but they tend to have many similarities. The same cannot be said for how L5R handles this same creation myth. In the Legend of Five Rings, the sun goddess Amaterasu Omikami is portrayed not as she is here in Japan in the creation myth. Instead, she is made more to seem like the Greek primordial goddess Rhea, and her husband Onotango, who does not exist in Shinto or Japanese culture, takes on the role of Kronos. In addition, both Amaterasu Omikami and Onotango take on the roles of Izanami no Mikoto and Izanagi no Mikoto, specifically in the creation of the world. In this creation story, Amaterasu Omikami gives birth to 10 different kami, 9 in some versions of the myth, and all but the last one, Hante, who is also a fictional character, are eaten and consumed by Onotango.
Sound familiar to you? Yeah. It's basically the origin story of the Greek gods, but with the Japanese kami, Amaterasu Omikami, filling in the role of a Greek goddess. Even down to saving one child and raising them in secret to rescue the other kami. Eventually, Hante defeats his father, cutting open his belly and freeing the other kami, who all promptly fall to earth. One dies, one is sent into Jigoku, which is the Japanese Buddhist version of hell, and the remaining 8 kami fall into what is called Rokugan.
So you're probably asking yourself why I'm here at Meiji Jingu. What does any of this have to do with a shrine here in Japan? Well, it has to deal with two things. First, the lineage of the Emperor Rokugan, and second, the veneration of kami as a religion in Legend of the Five Rings. On the first point, and the second, FFG kind of has a couple of major fails. The first being that the word kami, in relation to the founders of the various clans, is often meant almost to represent the word gods. Same with how they treat Amaterasu Omikami and Onotangu. In essence, though, that's also countered later in their own stuff when it refers to kami almost as a feral nature spirit in Legend of the Five Rings. They're used almost exclusively for the usage of magic. So, what are kami?
There are a couple different definitions of what a kami is, but something that is nearly universally agreed upon is that kami are not particularly gods or spirits only. Kami generally represent both the spiritual and living energy of a thing. Kami are neither only good nor evil, as the concept of dualism does not exist within Shinto. Neither does the idea of jigoku. A significantly old tree can be kami, a waterfall can be kami, the sun is kami, and even a person can be kami. Kami, as such, is a broad and complicated term with a lot of cultural and religious connotations to it. It's not something that should be taken on without first seeking a deeper understanding of the source material, and I have yet to see any form of Western media seek to really try to understand it. I will say this though, FFG has done far better at it than any others, with the major exception being this foundational myth. Amaterasu Omikami is not the only Shinto kami mentioned by name in the setting. Inari Okami, Hachiman Okami, all of the 7 lucky gods, Susanoo no Mikoto, renamed Osono wo in the game, are a few examples. Why use the names of divine beings from a real-world religion if you are not going to use that religion's own myths as a baseline for your setting's myths? If, for example, you named a major religious figure in your setting Jesus Christ, there would be some expectations that would need to be met. You couldn't suddenly change him into a child of 2 gods and make him a warrior. That'd be viewed very negatively. While you could still adjust the mythology around Christ to fit your setting, you couldn't actively change the character or the myth to be too much because of the baggage around him. The kami of Shinto are the same way, and some of the kami are treated with that level of respect in the Legend of Five Rings, though others are not. If you're going to take on the names of real religious divine beings, you also have to be responsible, understand the weight that carries, and the aspects of the real-world faith that makes it important to people. Adding kami is fine. In Shinto, there are an infinite number of them, and who's to say which ones would rise to prominence in a different setting? But making such drastic changes to one of the core kami of Shinto is problematic. The same could be said of using a made-up kami as the moon and husband of Amaterasu Omikami, when there is already a kami of the moon who is the brother of Amaterasu Omikami, Tsukiyomi no Mikoto.
There is, of course, other issues at play here, and one of the reasons why I'm here at Meiji Jingu, and that is in relation to the Imperial line of descent from Amaterasu Omikami. Here in the real world, the Imperial family of Japan, for most of Shinto and Japanese history, utilized their claim to being descendants of Amaterasu Omikami to maintain control of the country both spiritually and politically.
This is a belief since ancient times, and thus is a part of Japanese culture, but it is not often spoken about and does not have much relevance in Shinto practices, aside from the rites performed in the imperial household, as they perform rites to Amaterasu Omikami as an ancestor kami. In the Legend of the Five Rings, all the great houses are descended from Amaterasu Omikami. So in essence, the only thing keeping the clans united was the claim of descent, that every clan would also have that claim. In the real world, other clans were descended from other kami, and these kami were called ujigami, or clan kami. Nowadays, though, this term generally refers to a kami of a local area. This interconnection between politics and spirituality led to a complex hierarchical system with shifting clans in power. We don't necessarily see that in L5R, especially when it comes to the claims that the Moshi are the chosen people of Amaterasu Omikami.
So where do we go from here? There are problems, yes. Does that mean this game is something that should be avoided? No. While there is misinformation, it is also plain to see that FFG and Edge have been making attempts to both honor the cultures that inspire L5R, as well as the legacy of what L5R was when they acquired it from AEG. Instead, what I suggest is learning about the mythology of Shinto and Japanese Buddhism and adjusting your home game to better fit it. I'm not saying take the mythologies wholesale and add them into your game. Instead, I suggest blending it. I plan on presenting a way on how to take a myth from Shinto and incorporate it respectfully into L5R, as well as show the disconnect between the spiritual practices of the Rokugan world from their mythology. A great example of this disconnect is Misogi, which is explicitly shown in the Shinto myth where Izanagi no Mikoto conducts it after coming into contact with the realm of the dead. We do not see anything that fits the same action in the L5R myth. Yet, ritual purification is central in the religion shown in L5R. This is a disconnect from the setting, mythology, and the way in which it is integrated.
That disconnect is why I'm here. It's why I'm doing these videos. I'm not here to bash L5R, but I am here to point out where it makes mistakes, where it does things right, and where it can improve. I'm here at Meiji Jingu because the Emperor Meiji sought to improve his nation by bringing in outside experts and opinions. In this same way, we are now looking at Japan through a different lens, through the lens of L5R, and gaining a deeper understanding and appreciation for it by correcting the mistakes, embracing the things that it has correct, and commending them for their attempts. I look forward to seeing your comments, and I thank you all for tuning in. If you'll excuse me now, I'm going to go and head back to the shrine proper and pay my respects to Emperor Meiji and Empress Shokan.
I want to offer special thanks to Olivia, the Associate Priestess at Konkokyu Yokosuka Shrine, for fact-checking the scripts before filming. Without their help, this video would not be possible. Thank you.
So if you're still watching, this is kind of like the after credits scene, in movies. Anyway, I'm here to ask for your guys' thoughts and suggestions, as well as to ask, do you guys want me to explore the fortunes of L5R next? Or do you want me to maybe look at the parts of a shrine and dig into that? Or maybe look at some mythology or specific kami you want to know more about? Let me know in the comments below, and we'll kind of continue our exploration of Shinto and L5R together. Anyway, have yourselves a good one. It's hot out here. I'm going to go exit the shrine and get myself something to drink.